Those who know the truth must teach. African proverb. Unlike at the conclusion of World War II, when the Jewish Holocaust ended and the US and the UN contributed massive financial support to rebuild the lives of the Jews, there was no moral obligation to do the same for we Africans. Although the African Holocaust lasted hundreds of years longer, resulted in millions of more deaths, and more greatly decimated the African culture, when slavery was abolished, America, Great Britain, and many other white nations that benefited from their brutal exploitation of Africa felt no moral obligations to restore the culture of African people. They instead focused on their own self-interest by socializing the collective minds of Black people to think in ways that are against our own self-interest and that instead think in ways that serve the interests of the white society. The African slaves of the 21st century are those who cannot overcome their socialized minds. Socialized is when the oppressors exploits their monopoly over information that are systematically fed into the minds of the oppressed to manipulate the oppressed to think and behave in ways that serve the interests of the oppressors. White social scientists describes this nefarious practice as merely instilling a value system into the collective minds of the subordinate populations that makes them adhere to the authority and existing infrastructure of the dominant population. There are four ways to effectively socialize an entire generation of people: by what they're taught, by what they see, by what they hear, and through repetition. Because the white society controls the education we're taught, the media images we see, and the societal narrative that we repetitively hear, these combined factors allows white oppressive forces to covertly socialize the collective minds of millions of Black people to think in ways that benefits the white society without most of us even realizing it. It's how the white society protects itself from massive unified Black retribution. The socializing process first began during our early educational development, when our minds are young and most impressionable. Through a whitewashed educational curriculum that withholds virtually all Black racially affirming historical facts from Black students. This psychologically conditions Black students to grow up perceiving ourselves through a false inherent inferior identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance over Black people because it makes us more compliant with their white dominance over our lives. The socializing process is also being reinforced unrelentingly through constant fraudulent Black media propaganda that keeps Black people believing the fraudulent worst narratives about ourselves. This demoralizes us, divides us, creates Black self-loathing, and shifts Black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirects it towards ourselves. It also attacks the core foundation of what bonds us as a people, and we can then be ruled over forever. This socializing process is the true hidden reason why many Black people are now self-loathing, perceives ourselves as being our own worst enemies, and reveres and defend Caucasians in spite of such a brutally horrific history to the contrary. Whenever the oppressed starts thinking exactly as their oppressors wants them to do so, it's always because they've been socialized to do so. Nothing is being done in our defense because we no longer have true Black leaders. We only have Black puppet leaders that actually works for the benefit of the white establishment. And most Black people not only don't know what's happening, most don't even know they don't know. Those Black people who don't critically think never notices their mental change. This is our hidden reality. Now here's a reason why they socialize Black people. There's an immense concern of massive unified Black retribution that secretly exists amongst white nations that have brutally oppressed and have grossly exploited Black people for many centuries. This immense concern of massive unified Black retribution resulted in white social scientists socializing the minds of black people to think and behave in ways that prevents massive unified black retribution. To not have socialized black people would have in fact been directly against the interests of the white society. Because the white society's exploitation of Africans has provided with an era of which it has flourished most throughout history. To allow this era to end would be directly against the interests of the white society, especially given that the white society's dependence upon Africa's natural resources is indefinite and forever. They therefore logically socialized black people to think in ways that allowed them to continue the exploitation and subjugation of black people without any significant black resistance. Many black people have been socialized to complacently wait for Jesus to come save us. However, the Bible was in fact the first propaganda literature used by the white society to socialize the minds of black people to think and behave in ways that served the interests of the white society. The early white Christians' conversion of Africans into their religion had nothing to do with saving the souls of Africans so that Africans could join them in heaven during the afterlife. This is an irrefutable fact because the early white Christians believed that black people had no souls and that heaven was for whites only. They in fact believed that the thought of a black person entering the kingdom of heaven was as ridiculous as a dog doing so. This is a fact. When you logically look at facts as they were, you can say with 100% certainty that the white enslavers and colonizers' conversions of Africans into their religion had absolutely nothing to do with saving the souls of Africans. There was another self-serving reason why those racists, enslavers, and colonizers put their time and energy into teaching Christianity to a people they otherwise treated so brutally. The reason was to socialize Africans. More particularly, it was to indoctrinate the belief of a white God into their minds. When the Africans were taught through Christianity to worship a white God, this produces a profound adoration of whiteness within their minds. This happens without most even realizing it. This profound adoration of whiteness is then transferred and then transposed on a subconscious level onto white people. This made the colonized and enslaved Africans more subservient towards their colonizers and their enslavers. Therefore, Christianity greatly facilitated the white society's colonization and enslavement of Africans. The effects of the white revering brainwashing scheme implemented hundreds of years ago has been left uncorrected and unremoved for generations. Many black Christians insist that Christianity was originally practiced by black people in Ethiopia. However, in reality, the Roman Emperor Constantine created the false religion in the year 325 AD. Christianity did not become the official religion of Ethiopia until the reign of King Ezana in the year 341 AD. That's 16 years after the Romans created the false religion. Christianity is not the belief system practiced by we Africans prior to the year 325 AD. Furthermore, through Christianity, millions of black people have been brainwashed to believe that all of the wrongs that the white society have done to us throughout history has been washed away clean by the blood of a fictional white Jesus. Africans were also originally brutally forced to become Christians. And then this doctrine was used to compel our ancestors to forgive the white society for the brutality they inflicted upon us as the religion dictates. Note, the white society never actually repented nor even apologized for the evil deeds committed against black people. They merely insisted that black people, now being Christians, forgive them as the doctrine dictates. Furthermore, by teaching black people that a white God sent down his white son on earth to die for us, literally makes millions of black people feel indebted to the white society. You know, it's a damn shame that millions of black people are attempting to free ourselves depending upon a Bible that was used to socialize our minds. Christianity has proven itself as being history's most successful propaganda literature, used for socializing the minds of black people to think in ways that serves and protect the interests of the white society. Millions of black people have awakened to the reality of the fact that Jesus never existed. Therefore, he won't be returning to save us. Also, that we did not make the N-word ours, while oppressive forces socialized us to do so. We also now know that they've also manipulated us to perceive ourselves as being our own worst enemies, as a means of preventing us from unifying against them. But the reality is they're still our worst enemies. We also know that our minds have been socialized. Many black people are afraid to learn and accept the truth because their identities are so connected to those indoctrinated lies, And for many of us, those lies are so deeply indoctrinated into us that we fight against our own people who try to free our minds from those lies. Many black people also reject all liberating truth because of the inherent call for action that comes with accepting the truth. They therefore instead cling to their biblical fairy tales and their silly slave syndrome myths that keeps us complacent as a people, stagnant and mentally enslaved, and therefore keeping us within the good graces of our oppressors. When we do this, we become the wardens of our own mental prisons. It is time. The awakening is among us. You could choose to be among the ignorant, dumb ones, or you could be among those who are awakened and can see the truth. You can support my efforts by ordering my book at The Black People's Matrix, www.theblackpeoplesmatrix.com. But more so, share the information, share the videos. We must spread the information, get it out there. You may notice in the last 10 months, I've been putting out lots of videos. So I made up my mind. When they eventually take me out, at least the videos can continue moving on. My words can move on beyond my life. One love and peace.